In this video, we will see how to create new ceiling types and edit their properties. And we'll also see how to adjust the setting out of a ceiling grid to suit the design. I have the exercise file, Edit Ceiling Types open. And we're looking at the conference area ceiling plan, which is where we will edit the ceilings. Looking at the ceilings in the lounge and the conference room, they're currently using a 2 foot by 2 foot grid system. We want to change them to be a 4 foot by 1 foot plank ceiling system. I'll start by selecting the ceiling in the conference room, and looking at the type selector, we can see that this is the 2 by 2 foot acoustic ceiling tile system. And clicking on the type selector, we can see there's not actually a 4 foot by 1 foot plank system available. So to create this, we'll need to duplicate the existing type. With the ceiling still selected, I'll click Edit Type to access its type properties. And then at the top of the box by its name, I'll click Duplicate to create the new ceiling type. We'll assign the name 1 foot by 4 foot plank system and click OK to save the name. Now we need to edit the structure of the ceiling. So from the type parameters, we'll click the Edit button next to the structure parameter. And that will open up the assembly of the ceiling. Now looking at the layers within the assembly, we can see we have the structure layer, and this is used to support the ceiling tiles. Beneath that we have the actual ceiling tile layer, and this is using the material acoustic ceiling tile 24 by 24. And this is what we will need to change to create our 4 by 1 plank system. So I'll select the material, and then using the button that appears, we'll open up the material browser. So now we can see that we have two materials here, acoustic ceiling tile 24 by 24 and also 24 by 48, that are both being used within the model. So we'll duplicate one of these. So right click in the 24 by 48, we'll choose Duplicate Material and Assets to create a new material. And we'll rename this to Acoustic Ceiling Tile 12 by 48. Now looking at the Graphics tab, we can see on the foreground surface pattern that it's using the Ceiling 24 by 48 fill pattern. To edit this, we'll click on the fill pattern itself, and this will open up the fill patterns dialog box. And we can see we have two fill patterns, and we'll need to create a new one. So from the bottom of the box, we'll click New Fill Pattern, and then we'll name this Ceiling 12 by 48. And now from the settings panel, we'll change from parallel lines to crosshatch. We'll set the line angle to 0 degrees, and then line spacing 1 to 12 inches, and line spacing 2 to 48 inches. And then we can click OK to create that new fill pattern. So now we can click OK to apply the surface pattern to the material, and we can see that in the foreground surface pattern now. We'll also change the appearance asset. So from the tabs at the top, we'll click the appearance tab. And we can see that this has also duplicated the appearance asset when we duplicated the material. So I'll expand out the information panel, and we'll rename this to suit our 1 by 4 ceiling grid. Now looking further down at the generic panel here, we can see we have the image. And this is an image that represents a 2 by 4 ceiling grid. And we can edit this image to suit our 1 by 4. So looking at the actual preview of the image, if we click onto this, it will open up the texture editor. And now looking at the preview at the top here, we can see this is scaled to be 16 feet square. And if we change the height of this to half the amount, to just 8 feet, then that will represent a 1 foot by 4 foot grid as opposed to a 2 foot by 4 foot grid. So looking further down, we have the scale panel, and we can see the sample size here is set to 16 foot width and height. But the proportions are currently locked, so we'll click on the little lock symbol here to unlock those. And now we can change the height parameter to 8 feet, and then this will halve its height and will give us our 1 foot by 4 foot tile size. And we can see that in the preview at the top. So we'll click Done to finish this. And that's all the changes we need to make to our material. So we'll click OK to assign it into our actual ceiling. And now we'll click OK to accept the assembly. and then OK once more to actually create that ceiling system. And straight away we can see that applied to the ceiling in the conference room. So now I'll select the ceiling grid in the lounge, and from the type selector we'll change that to be our new 1x4 plank system. So looking at the layout of the ceilings in the rooms, it would be nice to get them to line up a little bit better. We can see the conference room needs to be rotated through 90 degrees. And then we'll use the Align tool to align the grids between the rooms, so it would be nice for them to line up. So to do this, we'll start by rotating the conference room grid. We can select any ceiling grid here, and then from the Modify Ceilings ribbon menu, we'll click on the Rotate tool. And now, looking at the options bar beneath, we have the option to type the angle in, so we'll just type in 90 degrees and press return, and then that ceiling grid will be rotated in the right orientation. Now we'll use the Align tool to align the grids between the rooms. From the Modify ribbon tab, we'll choose the Align tool, and we'll start by aligning the reception ceiling grid to the wall so that we have a whole tile at the beginning. Looking at the Modify Align ribbon menu, we'll change the setting from wall center lines to wall faces. And now we can zoom in and click on the edge of the wall, and then click the vertical line in the ceiling grid, and that will align to the wall and give us a whole tile starting at that wall edge. Now we'll align the lounge through to the reception. So we'll start by clicking a grid in the reception as the reference, and then click one in the lounge for these to align. We'll repeat this for the conference room, so again we'll click a vertical grid line in the reception, and then one in the conference room for them to align. And next we'll align up the horizontal grid lines, so again we'll choose a horizontal grid line in the reception first, and then one in the conference room for these to line up. And now to get the lounge in the conference room to line up, we'll click a horizontal grid in the conference room as the reference, and then finally select the horizontal grid in the lounge. So now that we have all of those grid lines lined up, that finishes the work we need to do to our ceilings.